You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And to continue our conversation with borders on 2 years of Tinubu administration's focus on housing sector, here's an excerpt from our previous conversation put together by correspondent Timothy Yusuf.
The Renewed Hope Housing Program is a program of federal government of Nigeria under the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It's a transformative program in order to make housing a reality for Nigerians. Home ownership, I can say, a reality for Nigerians. It's aimed to make housing very accessible, inclusive, and affordable for all Nigerians and all cadres of Nigerians, from the high to the low, even to the low-income Nigerians. That's what the Renewed Hope Housing Program is all about. And when it came in three categories. We had the Renewed Hope Cities program, which is aimed to deliver 7 cities in the country, 1 in the federal capital, and then 1 in each geopolitical zone of the country, in the major cities of each of the zones. This is aimed to deliver 1,000 plus housing units in these locations.
Just like the Honourable Minister has mentioned, the government realized very early on that the private sector needs to play a critical role in the delivery of housing for Nigerians. And that's why the private sector were able to mobilize very serious-minded, large-scale developers. Because the real issue here is, when you look at the rental cost of rent, the real factor driving up rent is the lack of housing.
Yes.
That's within close proximity to the cities. So for us, developers had to come, apply to the ministry. We went through a normal process. And through that process now, we are talking about the Renewed Hope Cities, which is delivering 1,000 units in all 6 geopolitical zones and the FCT.
There are many ways, in such a way that the federal government has an institution, which is the primary mortgage bank, which is the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. It's the secondary mortgage market that can provide affordable mortgages to all Nigerians at the rate of 6%, which is the cheapest you can get, and with a large time of repayment, which is up to 30 years repayment. If you compare it with the private sector, they can only give you mortgage if you go to commercial bank for 5 years at almost 25%. Now with the MRIF, they can provide you 16% with maybe 20 years. So already there exists an institution that has branches in 36 states of the Federation, including FCT, that is providing that.
Thank you, Timothy, for putting together that excerpt from our last week discussion on the Tinubu administration on the housing. Now we have a continuation of that discussion, and we have in our studio, our guests are already seated. Joining us here to continue the conversation on 2 years of President Tinubu's administration focusing on the housing sector. Let me first introduce Shehu Usman Osidi, Managing Director of Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. MD, you are welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All right. Also joining us here is Barrister Festus Adebayo. Is the founder Housing Development Advocacy Network and founder Africa International Housing Show. Barrister Adebayo, it's been a while. Good to see you after a very long time.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And we also have here seated in the studio Dr. Ugochukwu Chime. He's a housing expert and chairman, Presidential Land Reforms Tax Team, and member, Governing Council, Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, NECA. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much
this morning.
Jumai, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, so let's kickstart this conversation this morning with the MD. We're still looking at the 2 years administration of President Tinubu's policy on housing. And as a key housing finance institution, how would you assess, the impact of the Renewed Hope Housing Program on the national landscape so far? And what is the role of the Federal Mortgage Bank in all this?
Thank you very much. I think I will start by saying that the President, from the beginning, identified housing as a major driver of the Nigerian economy. And he demonstrated it by first creating a housing ministry to stand alone. As you know, in the past, we used to have the Federal Ministry of Power, Works and Housing. Then it came to Works and Housing. And so when he came, he decided to remove it from Works and created a standalone ministry as Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. That clearly shows a president that has a clear vision for housing. And the president also demonstrated further by appointing a professional in the built environment in the person of Architect Ahmed Musa Dengiwa as the Honorable Minister for Housing. Secondly, the president also introduced the renewed hope housing agenda, which was to be driven by the Honorable Minister of Housing, Architect Ahmed Dengiwa. And to your question, what is the role of the FMBN? In terms of assessing how far, I would say so far so good. Now, first, that has opened a vista of opportunities, created situations where both the private sector and the public sector can work together to amplify the benefits that are derivable from the housing sector. Now, what is the role of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria? As you know, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria is the apex mortgage institution in Nigeria, created to pool resources together in terms of contributions for the from Nigerian workers, both in the public and private sectors, into the National Housing Fund. The idea is to give opportunities to Nigerians to contribute to a fund that will enable them to take a loan to own their houses. So what that does is that we have what we call a qualifying criteria. Every Nigerian contributes who is gainfully employed, either as a self-employed individual or in paid employment, is required by law to contribute 2.5% of his monthly income. Now, if you take a Nigerian who is earning 100,000 naira, 2.5% contribution would be 2,500. The law provides that if you contribute 2.5, which is 2,500 in this case, for 6 months, which is 15,000 naira, it gives you an opportunity to take a mortgage loan of between 5 million to 50 million, which you would pay back over a period of 30 years.
Okay, I mean, that contribution can actually give you opportunity to get a loan?
Yes, that's why I said the contribution is a qualifying criteria.
Okay.
It has no correlation with the amount of money you can borrow. Okay. What you can borrow as a mortgage loan depends on your income and the number of years you have in service. But that contribution is a qualifying criteria just for you to qualify to participate in the scheme. So you can imagine the opportunity that is there. You contribute 15,000, you have an opportunity to take a loan of between 10 to 50 million naira. Now, because of the central role of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, when the president pronounced the agenda, the Renewed Hope Housing Agenda, as driven by the Honorable Minister, the ministry also identified the fact that government cannot do it alone. Housing investment is capital intensive, as we all know. And so there was the need to also bring the private sector. And one of the reasons I said it was very critical and strategic for the president to appoint an expert in the housing sector is that when the minister came on board, one of the first things he did was to establish 4 reform task teams and give them an agenda to produce a blueprint and a roadmap for the implementation of the Mr. President's agenda. And these 4 task teams were: 1, Housing Institutions Reform Task Team, that was charged with the responsibility of reforming the housing institutions like the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, the Federal Housing Authority, etc. Second is the Building Materials Manufacturing Hub, which is also intended to create a building material manufacturing hub in each of the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Then there was also the Land Reforms Task Team that was also to look at the obsolete laws, guiding and stifling housing transactions in Nigeria, to generally make recommendations on reforming the title documents with respect to land. And then the 4th is the National Social Housing Fund, which was also intended to create a fund where even individuals who are no income earners can have access, have shelter over their head. Okay. So now the role of the Federal Mortgage Bank is that the ministry signed an MOU between the federal ministry and a consortium of developers to build houses across the country.
Okay.
And the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria provided a bankable off-taker guarantee of 100 billion naira to enable this
100 billion.
100 billion naira.
Okay.
To enable these developers access funding for housing. And in any location where these houses are constructed, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria also provides mortgage loans for the individual beneficiaries of those houses. So in addition to the bankable off-taker guarantee that were provided, we are also involved in direct funding for the delivery of houses under the Renewed Hope agenda. But the idea is that because the private sector is borrowing from the private sector, the rates are higher, and so we are exploring the opportunity of a cross-subsidy so that low and medium income earners, who are the targets of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, can live in those communities by paying less.
Okay, by paying less. Our viewers, last week, most of you sent questions, for the Federal Mortgage Bank, and the MD CEO is seated here in the studio. So let's start getting your messages as they come in. Now, MD, I would like you to explain step by step, the major steps that the Federal Mortgage Bank has taken in the past 2 years to improve access, to affordable houses. And can you sort of elaborate on the structure and impact of your public-private partnership? Let's have a structure of how it works.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let me start with the second question, which is the structure of our public-private partnership. Now, we have this in a number of variants. The first one is where a private developer that has land can collaborate with the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, where we will provide construction financing for the houses to be built. And when the houses are constructed, we will again create mortgage loans for individual beneficiaries who are going to be off-takers of those houses. Now, as an institution, we had, I would say, a bitter experience where developers who had land in whatever location had approached the bank for funding of those houses without off-takers in mind ab initio. So we ended up with estates that were built in some locations that were not off-taking for the reason that they were not properly located and so on. And some of them, the off-takers...
Due diligence was not carried out.
Due diligence was carried out, but I think it's a matter of judgment. I mean, so I would not want to pass judgment on, but the point I'm making is that we then decided as an institution to say, before we finance any construction, we must know from day one the individuals for whom those houses are being built. So we created what we call the Cooperative Housing Development Loan Window, where Nigerian workers, for example, both in the public and private sector, can form cooperatives and design the kind of houses they want by themselves, cost those houses according to the income of their members, and then they approach the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria to take a loan to build the houses so that we can then finance mortgages for the individual members to borrow. The second variant that we have is what we call the Ministerial Pilot Housing Scheme, where we are partnering with the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. The ministry provides land, and then the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria provides construction financing. And again, when the houses are constructed, we will also provide mortgages for the individual beneficiaries. And then the third is what I explained earlier, where we are providing bankable off-taker guarantees to developers who are willing to build houses. And what we require from them is to tell us for whom those houses are being built. So you must enter into a partnership with a group of off-takers to say, we have these individuals working in ABC, and they are interested in buying the houses that we will build. We have worked together to design the houses, to cost the houses, and so when we build these houses, they will off-take. So we do what we call profiling of those off-takers, check their affordability and be sure that they are willing to take those houses, and then we finance construction. So those are variants of the PPP that we are doing.
Must there be civil servants or private people who can come in and get these houses?
Both.
Okay, both.
Both public civil servants and private sector employees in the private sector, and even self-employed individuals. Or your own as a self-employed Nigerian, you can declare a monthly income that you earn and decide on your own how much you think is 2.5% of that income, and contribute to the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria for 6 months, and it gives you an opportunity to apply for a mortgage loan to buy a house.
Okay, from what you have said so far, MD, it appears that the Federal Mortgage Bank has been a key driver of flagship housing projects like the Renew Hope cities in Kassana and Ibejuleki. What makes this project different from previous housing initiatives that the bank has embarked on, and how are they contributing to improve access in terms of affordability, for Nigerians?
Okay, let me start by saying that the Renewed Hope Cities and HS program is a very major program of the government. And as you recall, the president, specifically on the 8th of June 2024, when he personally did the groundbreaking of the 3,112 housing units at Karsada in Abuja, he made a statement that he intended to turn the country into a major construction site. As you know, housing is a major driver of the Nigerian economy, or any economy for that matter. So the difference between our participation in the Renewed Hope, especially in Karsana and Ibejuleki Lagos, is that, like I explained earlier, ordinarily, in the course of our normal operations, what we were doing was for developers to approach the bank, take a facility to build houses, after which we then provide mortgages. But as you know, affordability is a function of two variables. One is cost and the other is income. Now, for you to have an affordable house, for example in Abuja, it is very difficult to build such a house in the city center. So most of the developments that were financed in Abuja, for example, are in the outskirts. So you are talking of locations like maybe Kuje or some outskirts of Abuja. For example, we have a development behind MD Abubakar Police Barracks. So they are not within town. However, the Renewed Hope Cities project are projects that are located in the town. And so what that means is that they are going to cost more than ordinarily our houses would cost. And so we decided to participate so we can give opportunities to Nigerians who are contributing to the National Housing Fund to live in those communities by enjoying cross-subsidy.
Okay, the Minister of Housing and Urban Development was the MD of
the Federal
Mortgage Bank before he became Minister. So the kind of collaboration you've been making with him, how has it reflected in access?
In fact, I must say that we consider ourselves lucky to have a minister who understands the workings of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria and to a large extent the Nigerian housing sector. We have benefited a lot because a lot of our loans have been expeditiously passed because he understands where it pinches. You know that the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria has been carrying a lot of, let me say, baggage. A lot of people used to complain about the bank. They don't even know how much they are contributing. They have no access to their contributions. They have not benefited from any loan, and so on and so forth. Now, when the minister came, we were very clear between us and himself as to what we need to do to change the narrative about the Federal Mortgage Bank. One is for us to create enough sensitization for people to understand what we are doing. We have had occasions where people have asked us, Federal Mortgage Bank, is that bank still existing? But I think that is gradually changing.
At a point?
Yes, I know. Yeah. So now we run a program which was restored by this current management. Everyone deserves a home. Every week on NTA 8:05 p.m. on Thursdays, and on Saturdays on Channels TV by 7 p.m. So we do this to sensitize Nigerians. Now the point I'm making is that because of the sensitization, a lot more people are joining the National Housing Scheme. And so by extension, we have a lot of loan requests from individuals seeking to benefit from these facilities. So our relationship with the minister has been such that all of the requests that we send to the ministry receive immediate attention. And so we get those approvals as quickly as we want. And that is why we have almost been able to double the loan approvals between just 1 year of our coming into office, between 2023 and 2024. Before we came, total loans in 2023 was 39.7 billion. But during 1 year, we had increased this to 71.5 billion naira. So I must say that that relationship has been very, very under and impacting. Then secondly, the minister has also been emphasizing on affordability. We have had occasions where he has turned down our loans for the reason that he does not believe that Nigerians can afford those prices. And that is the beauty of having in the knowledge or experience of having worked in a place, and he understands the feelings of Nigerians. So what did we do? We decided to go back to the drawing board, using the instrumentality of those cooperative societies to give our contributors an opportunity to design the kind of houses they want by themselves, cost those houses by themselves. Let me say that ordinarily, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria is a mortgage institution which presupposes that you have houses standing and then you provide mortgages for people to buy those houses. But because either those houses were not available or the houses available were not within the threshold of affordability to our target market, the low and medium income earners, that was why we decided to venture into construction financing so that we can control the prices at which these houses are delivered for our members. And I keep saying, in Nigeria, we have houses we do not need, and we need houses that we do not have. If you go through the streets of Abuja or any major city, you will see a lot of empty houses. Why is this? Those houses are not affordable. And the houses that are affordable are not available. And that is why we have been following the directive of the minister to make sure that we design houses that are cheaper and affordable to our target market. And accessible, yes.
And that's the most major.
In fact, let me explain something about accessibility. Now, number one is to meet the qualifying criteria. That is also one constraint that can affect accessibility. So what we decided to do was to remove the equity contribution. It used to be 30%. Now, if you ask an ordinary civil servant that wants to buy a house of 20 million to provide 2 million naira equity, it becomes very, very difficult for people to save. He may have the affordability to pay on a monthly basis, but may not be able to pay at once the equity contribution. So what did we do? We created a rent-to-own window where you can move into the house and pay gradually as if you are just paying your normal rent, and over a time the house becomes yours. So we just spread the cost of the house over the number of years that you have remaining in service, and then you pay gradually. And so these initiatives are actually driven by the minister, who has been insisting on accessibility. Two is the issue of our IT transformation. When we came on board, we met an IT program that had been on for almost like 5 to 6 years. So we decided, which is the core banking application technology that the bank was deploying. So we took a bold step to make sure that whatever it took, we needed to close out and make it possible for individuals on top of their phones to be able to access our facilities. So you can actually use your phone to register with the NHF. You can use your phone to apply for a loan. And so we have a seamless transformation that is going on, that is making it possible and easy for people to access these houses.
Okay, we'll pause you there for a while we bring in the other guests into this conversation. Dr. Chime, tell us, what has been your experience, working with the Federal Mortgage Bank on affordable housing projects across the country? We know this is something that is passionate. The president is very passionate about it. So, and he's making sure that before he leaves office, maybe after 4 years or 8 years, every Nigerian will have a home, not just a house, a home, affordable, and you can live in it, or you can buy as many as you want if you have the money to buy it. So, as partners in this journey with the president, how has your experience been with the Federal Mortgage Bank? And let's talk about accessibility, your reach with them.
Thank you so much. In actual fact, many people, Nigerians, do not know that the Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria is a creation of Federal Mortgage Bank in 2002, May precisely. There was a problem of availability of houses for mortgages, and the Nigerian Labour Congress under Adams Oshomole decided to abrogate contribution of workers to the National Housing Fund. Mr. President then, Obasanjo, said, no, we can't do this. What do we need to do? I appointed the Peter Odele committee to look at it. Dr. Peter Odele was then the governor of
Rivers State.
Yeah. And that committee sat, and after that they said, okay, we have to do a comprehensive review of the housing ecosystem. And that was what led to the revamped FMBN then, led by Professor Akim Mabagunze. And one of the things they did was to begin to address external factors that is impinging the affordability and access to housing. Because all the factors and all the activities that will make for affordability and access to housing does not start and end in Federal Mortgage Bank. there are external parties that are the state government. There are external parties like suppliers of building material. So they created what you call the Building Material Producers Association of Nigeria to be able to see what incentive and what encouragement and collaboration that can exist with all those who are within the roadmap and the ecosystem of housing development. That has been the move over the years. Now, on the oncoming of architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa led to the revamping of that concept, because staying alone, the factors that will make for affordability and accessibility does not reside alone with federal mortgage. There has to be a cross-sectorial engagement with other people. So that was why when the 4 task committees and then these other ones is to look at who are the parties that can help us in actualizing this. No matter the improvement you do, 100% improvement, make federal mortgage bank efficient, that will not bring down accessibility and affordability. So that led now to that broader engagement. And that is one of the beauty of what Mr. President has been able to bring in, to take us back to that 2002, 23 years ago, looking at the matter from a comprehensive perspective. And that is what is ongoing, and it is something that will lead to massive engagement. And I was playing a role in the land sector. Every development is on land. You discover, for instance, that Federal Mortgage Bank relies on documents for collateral for their mortgage loan. And that is not produced by Federal Mortgage Bank. It's not produced by federal government. 90% of the land is under the jurisdiction of the subnationals. Now, so there has to be a constructive engagement, because in the past, we have had situations where you finish a house in 6 months, but it takes 2 years to have the appropriate title to create the mortgage. And these titles are important because they provide a safeguard against default of the people. So what has happened over this period is that there has been a holistic re-engagement, I would say, re-engagement of all the factors that will lead to affordability and accessibility of land. And that engagement is taking place under the piloting of the minister. Now, those of us in the private sector, there was this agreement that, there was excessive profiteering on the part of developers. So what Federal Mortgage Bank has agreed with the private developers is, okay, we can look at this. Because we are providing the construction loan at a reasonable margin of 10%, 12%, we ourselves will also take a shave in our own profit. And so there has to be an agreement to look at the bill of quantity, look at other factors, and be able to cut it down, because we have all a collective agreement, a collective objective. And that objective is to provide for Nigerians affordable home. That engagement is what has taken place over the years. That we'll sit down, no matter the sector you are coming from, if you are a mortgage bank, instead of asking for a spread of 6%, 7%, they were able to bring the mortgage banks to do only 2% spread on the mortgage loan that passes through them.
Okay.
Now, for the developers, they were able to bring down the profit margin. So this engagement was, for some time after the 2007, was whittling down, but it has come on board again. And it is going to take quite some time to be able to get all the parties to see the need for us to have massive collaboration in bringing down the prices of housing in Nigeria. That engagement also goes back to even the architects. Can we design housing that are affordable? It goes back to the building material producers. Can we have affordable building material that is locally affordable, that is not subject to the variations of foreign exchange fluctuation? So this engagement is something that I think that have been going on for some time now. A core component of those engagements is the fact that we have to ask ourselves, in the past, federal government, Federal Mortgage Bank approach the state government. In some states, the cost of the land is more than the cost of the house on it. So there has to be a robust engagement to look at the fact of what are the mutual benefits. It is the responsibility of the state government to assist in providing affordable housing for their people. In the process, they will create employment. In the process, they will create IGR for themselves. So that engagement comprehensive collaborative engagement is what is ongoing today. And that involves every party that has a role to play in the housing ecosystem. And I believe that for those of us, it's an exciting thing. What is the excitement about it? The excitement about it is the fact that we appreciate that over time, there has been a paradigm shift in the approach to home ownership. 30, 40 years ago, people saved to build houses. But we have to migrate to the global trend of credit for housing, called mortgage, wherein you live in a house and you are paying for the house. Now, there are underlying structural issues that have to be tinkered with our laws, our foreclosure laws, and so many other factors. And that engagement is what requires a professional who understands all these activity centers and what we need to do. Because it's not only just one activity center, Federal Mortgage Bank. No, it is activity centers that are cut across all the stakeholder institutions that have a role to play in that transaction dynamics. And that, for me, is the engagement that will continue to go on. It will not yield an immediate result because, for instance, the engagement of the subnationals is something that takes quite a while. Because any issue of land, they say, oh, you are coming to take our land. You are trying to affect us. So, but for the citizens, precisely. So we are getting that advocacy, taking down to them. Can we have a conversation about your fears? And then while still looking at the Nigerian masses who are trying to provide shelter, who are trying to provide employment through that shelter provision, who are trying to provide multiplier effect in the local economy. So these are some of the engagements that takes time. But because people are very eager to move into the house the next time, say, oh, what are you doing? We can't see what you are doing. But a lot is going on.
A lot is going on, Dr. Chime. At least we're glad that the engagement has commenced and work is on. And actually what Nigerians want to see is the houses for them to be able to afford it. Let's look at let me come to Barrister Adebayo now. Let's assess the impact of this Renew Hope Cities and Estates Development Program on the housing sector. Because a lot of Nigerians are asking, what are the opportunities available for them? So you just give us your assessment of this Renew Hope Cities and Estate Development Program of the housing sector, and what opportunities and challenges do you foresee?
Thank you so much. 2 years of Tinubu's administration. I've done a lot of report on it. I've written out some news, make some write-up, made a critical appraisal of where we were, where we are, and where we are supposed to go. Housing is key. It's a serious matter. When you house your staff, when it comes to the office on the second day, that's productivity. If he has not slept well, the possibility that when he gets to the office, he'll be sleeping is there. Meaning, there's a correlation between housing and productivity. Let this will be known to you. The housing has correlation with that. Mm-hmm. If you don't live in a decent house, when I say decent, I mean habitable house. When I say habitable, I mean house where you are protected, there's security. Not that anybody can just come and take you out. I mean a house that complies to health positively. There are some houses that comply to health negatively. Meaning, the people living there will always go to hospital. We are saying there's also a correlation between housing and health. If a government provides housing, the resources that they'll be spending on health will reduce. Go to hospitals today and see what is going on. Last week, somebody spoke with me that he was hospitalized. He's supposed to spend 3 days. They say he should go on the second day because there are some critical cases that are better, that are worse than his own. So he should continue the treatment. So housing could be used to stop or to alleviate the suffering of the people all over the world. We see the contribution of housing, the mortgage to the GDP. In Nigeria is low. I think we are talking of 5 point something % now. but I think we can do better. Mr. President, on June 8th, at the groundbreaking of the New Hope said, every Nigerian deserves a home. I fell in love with him. And since then, I've been waiting for him to do what he's doing in Calabar, Lagos, Expressway, that has political backing, and it's moving like a machine to do that in housing. Housing needs political backing. The Federal Mortgage Bank we are talking about, how much does the federal government have there since they established it? The capital, from my record, as a leading promoter of housing in Africa, is that the government invested 2.5 billion. And by that, I don't know the MD is whether I can confirm whether they've gotten another recapitalization after that. And I'm also aware that CBN is supposed to make some contribution, about 30%, as part of their own capitalization for Federal Mortgage Bank. NSITF. I must inform you here that today, I'm not here, that CBN have fulfilled its own condition. And I'm also not aware that NSITF has fulfilled its own condition. If FMBN does not have money, how would they finance? They are relying mostly on what? On National Housing Fund. The National Housing Fund Act of 1992 said very clearly that the banks must devote a particular, I think 1% of their profits after tax, send it to FMBN so that Nigeria can be housed. Are they fulfilling it? Are they complying it at it? I remember last year I wanted to sue Central Bank of Nigeria for not ensuring that the banks comply, for not ensuring that the insurance company comply, because it is like disobeying the rules, the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And I think I'm still going to do that, because I stopped then because I saw that the National Assembly was inviting them to come and explain why. Federal Mortgage Bank is under 2 supervisors. And I think the prudential supervisor, by the virtue of that banking element around them, the Central Bank of Nigeria. And I think also the political and the strategic supervisor is the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development. So we are talking today that houses are being built. In fact, but there, housing creates jobs. As a mobile man that go from one estate to another estate, I've seen so many people enter into estate with Okada. And after 2 years, I saw them riding their car. So that is the power of housing. The man, woman selling food. The man riding Okada. I can tell you here that you can even use housing to arrest insecurity. The man who you engaged for bricklaying job, closed by 5 o'clock, will he be able to go and be caught to do one chance again? Or will he be able to say, want to go and do Boko Haram? No. He will have been tired. The little money he made, he will go home and eat, sleep, keep part of it. And then very soon, he will be thinking of having a wife. That is the effect of housing. I want to use this opportunity of my being here today to call on all the state governors who are privileged to be watching us here, that housing is very important. You can use it to arrest insecurity in their state. You can use it to arrest unemployment. You can use it to do a lot of things for economic development. Let's go to the affordability we are talking about. And that is the area I want to call on for policy review. They have done well in 2 years. The minister have done a lot of engagement. Stakeholders in the housing industry, call the professional bodies and their registration board. They are now working together. Before he came, they were not. They are now working together. They appointed new chairman, new president, and everything working. Let me inform you. There being this problem of data. You know, it's a big problem in Nigeria. We always go to places and say the housing deficit in Nigeria is this. All that we know is that we are producing geometrically. We are reproducing geometrically. We are graduating geometrically. But we are not producing those houses. Even arithmetically. Because in Nigeria, I'm not sure for the whole of a year, we have succeeded in producing ordinary 70,000 houses. So the minister has come to set up a committee that will look into this of data. So as I'm talking to you, by the grace of God, in July 2025, they'll be unveiling some data about some figures on housing deficit. That's a big achievement. But to go into the area of affordability, I don't know how FNBN can finance some of those houses in the New Hope, okay, where they don't even have the necessary resources. They capitalize them first, so that we can be able to throw stone at them for not financing your Hoftic. There's no money there. To the best of my knowledge. So maybe when I come back, I will discuss more about issue of affordability and how Nigerians, civil servants, will have access to that houses because they need it.
We need it. We definitely need it. So what are your challenges?
He has said something. Okay, I mean, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, he has outlined some challenges, you know, that the Federal Mortgage Bank is, and I see him nodding his head. I was thinking he was going to respond to some of them. Yes.
So tell us, how do you get funding?
Okay, we are funded, like I mentioned earlier, from the 2.5% contributions from Nigerian workers. So to a large extent, we are a workers' bank. But like you said, we are highly undercapitalized because for a bank of the size and of Federal Mortgage Bank, and given the mandate that we are required to deliver, a 2.5 billion capital that has been there for like 30 years is grossly inadequate. And so, but I must acknowledge that there has been a lot of constructive engagement in this direction, to the extent that the Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Development led us to do a presentation to the Federal Executive Council sometime last year, and FEC graciously mandated some institutions and agencies to work together for the recapitalization of the bank. And so these were the Bureau of Public Enterprises, the Federal Minister of Housing, Federal Minister of Finance, the Central Bank, and we are working together. We hope that very soon the ministry, because the shares owned by the federal government in the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria is actually held by Ministry of Finance. So we believe that in no distant time, the issue of recapitalization will be addressed. And once this is done, you know, we can leverage on our capital actually to raise money even from the capital market. And that is why this issue of recapitalization is very critical to us.
Okay, he also talked about a new board that has been inaugurated, bringing together diverse experiences and expertise. How important is the synergy between the board and management of the bank?
Okay, thank you very much. That's very critical. Last week, we had the board inaugurated by the Honorable Minister with individuals from diverse backgrounds. And what that does for us is that it strengthens our corporate governance framework. Because when you have a board that is overseeing your activities, it makes it much easier for us to have, issues of corporate governance addressed. Secondly, it is extremely important for the board and management to work together, because if you have a board and management that are not in sync with each other, then it will affect the extent to which we can deliver on our mandate. Don't forget that all of our loans must go to the board for approval before we are able to implement. So whatever initiatives that the management intends to implement, if you do not have the support and backing of the board, then it's going to affect what you can do. I must say that our early interaction, the board, by the way, is chaired by Dr. Nasiru Gauna, who has extensive experience in public policy and public sector management. He was one time deputy governor in Kano State and so on. And then we also have two representatives who are co-professionals from the Central Bank of Nigeria, and another representative appointed by Mr. President to represent public interest, who happens also to be an accountant by profession. So we believe that the synergy that they are bringing on board, especially that we also have core professionals within our own executive management, and we were lucky to have Mr. President graciously appointing Nigerians that are square pegs in square holes. Okay. I have background in banking, and I have Chinenye Anosike from the Southeast, who is also a banker. I have Dr. M.S. Abdu as executive director also from the Northeast, and then we have Dr. Dojukon, who is also an expert in in a transformation. So we have a very good team.
Okay, you have a very good team.
Yeah,
okay, MD, we have viewers have sent some questions,
Okay.
and which they will want you to respond to. This one says, "Good morning, MD, sir. I enjoy your program on NTA. I've contributed for 20 years to the housing, fund. How can you assist me enjoy a major long-term loan facility at your bank?" He's asking how someone can enjoy long loan-term facilities from your Federal Mortgage Bank. And this one says, "Good morning, Nigeria. Most of these houses are not benefited by low-income earners. They only sell it to ogas in civil service who already have plenty houses. And speaking from experience, they sweet talk on air and do otherwise." This one is from Jude from FCT. Actually, we asked the minister this same question last week, that most of these houses, because of the prices, the low-income earners find it difficult to afford them. So how do you intervene to ensure that the right people actually get these houses? That's what Mr. Jude is asking. Then this one says, "Good morning, NTA. My name is Ruth Agbe. How can I apply for the loan? The process to follow, please. I need it seriously." And this last one, before you answer, then Jumai will read out the own. So the bank has to change its policy to cater for self-employed. Again, the percentage of serving or retiring officers that are having access is very low. People like us that have retired, we don't have access to it. Statistically, 2 out of 10 retiring officers get their contribution back on retirement. That is, most people who have contributed, they hardly get their retirement they hardly get their contribution back. That's what he's saying. Remember our slogan in the 90s, housing for all in 2000. How far? This is 25 years down the lane.
Okay, I have some questions too. He said, "Good morning, sir, madam.
Maybe
Is
you
this
should
scheme..."
just answer then.
Because of time, we have another topic. So I'll...
Sorry.
Yeah.
So you may not be able to remember. Yes.
Difficult to
Okay.
remember. All right, so to the first person who asked how can he access mortgages, he can do this in 2 ways. Number one is that we have a branch in all the state capitals across the country. So if he's in any location, he can simply walk to our branch to, get some information about how he can apply. Secondly, I talked about the transformation that has happened in our place. All he needs to do is to dial ibank.gov.ng,
Okay.
and he can apply online
Okay.
to access our facility. So I don't know where he is. If he's in Abuja, we have 3 locations in Abuja. We have the head office where he can come, and then we can also guide him on how to apply. Or we have the 2 branches in the FCT area too. But I think the best way to go is probably to just try it online, and then he can apply. Then if he has any issues, he can let us know. Secondly, the issue of whether houses are given to ogas. I think we have a seamless process, and I must say that the kind of houses we actually finance are not attractive to ogas. That's the truth. And we target specifically the low and medium income earners. And like I explained, that is why we went into this collaboration where we're able to control the kind of houses and the prices at which these houses are delivered. And we'll be making a lot of efforts to make sure these houses are affordable and are accessible. But like I mentioned, the affordability is a function of some variables. But as much as possible, we try to make sure that our houses are cheaper and accessible all over the country. There is no institution that offers mortgages at 6%. In an economy where the commercial banks, for example, are offering mortgages at 25 to 35%, and we are talking about single digit, only the Federal Mortgage Bank does this. However, we do know that a lot of people complain because, well, like my colleagues have mentioned, the housing deficit is very huge. And so all of the efforts we are making is like throwing a coin in an ocean. I give you an example. Like I mentioned, if you contribute 2,500 naira for 6 months, that's 15,000. You now take a loan of 50 million or 30 million, which you do not pay back until after 25 or 30 years. Ask yourself, how much of the 2,500 will you put together to raise 50 million naira, and then you offer that as a mortgage to one person who does not pay back until after 25 or 30 years. So that's why a lot of the efforts we are making, people are not seeing. But you need to be able to interact with the bank, then you know it is possible. For example, the issue of funds that somebody talked about, every contributor who contributes is entitled by law to collect his total contribution plus 2% interest, whether or not he enjoys a loan. And so, if somebody has not collected, probably he's not aware that he needs to come and just apply to get his refund. So once you apply, we pay you, you know. And we have accelerated this process. In those days, it used to take up to 3 months before you get your refund. Now, within 1 month, you apply, you get your refund.
Okay, you've practically, replied to most of the questions that came via SMS into, that they've asked. It's all about access to loan and all that. I'll take this one. He said, "Good morning. Happy to be part of this program this morning. My name is Christian Okegele. I was with Transcorp Hilton before we retired during COVID-19. Myself and my colleagues contributed to NHF and we didn't benefit before our retirement. The challenge we have right now is we don't know how to get our money or even the housing since we are no longer working. Please, we really need your help, sir, knowing fully well that housing is part of Renewed Hope agenda." And this man said, "Mr. Peter from Nasarawa State, please, as a local government worker who is a contributor, how can I benefit from the mortgage housing? Thank you." And this one said, "Please, is there any scheme that takes care of retirees in your housing project? If not, I retired in 2022 and I was a contributor to the housing fund scheme. How do I get my contribution back?" That's coming from Ruth. And one said, "I'm a senior lecturer that have 11 years to retire. I only enjoyed 1 million house renovation loan, which I am repaying. Kindly assist." And I think that's about the questions I have here now.
All right. Now, to the question as to whether you can benefit if you have already retired, the answer is no. Because the contribution is structured in such a manner that you are expected to be able to enjoy a loan while you are still in active service, so that you can have a source of repayment. Once you retire and you're no longer collecting salary, then you are by law already out of the scheme. So what you need to do is just to apply and get the total refund of your contribution plus 2% interest. Now, to the lecturer who says he has 11 years, he has benefited from the home renovation loan, 1 million, which we also introduced because we discovered that not everybody actually needs a mortgage loan. Some individuals on their own may have made efforts to build a house, and all they need is probably put some fittings and then move in. So we provided that with liberalized conditions to allow people to benefit from the scheme. But since he has 11 years, if he's able to get a house that his income can finance, the labor law indicates that you cannot contribute more than 33 1/3% of your salary to pay a loan. Mm-hmm. So if his salary can actually afford a loan which he can pay within a period of 10 years, he still has that opportunity to apply. And like I mentioned, he can actually go to any of our branches or contact us online.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Chime, as we begin to round up this conversation.
There's still one more question.
Okay, there's still more questions.
Okay. This one says, "Is the right to own without equity meant only for civil servants? And if others can subscribe, what is the requirement?" And this other one said, "I bought a house from FNB and requested to use my national housing scheme to offset the loan since 2015. Up till now, I have not been given the document. I've tried several times. My name is Elizabeth Akinde from Lagos."
Okay, I will take note of that, but it depends on what she means by using her national housing fund to pay the loan. Because like I explained earlier, the total contribution for everybody for that matter is nowhere close to the amount of loan that you can take from what I have explained. So, but if I will take her details, so if I understand her own particular circumstance, we can solve it, and if it is repaid, we pay her. Then you talked about
rent to own without equity.
Exactly.
Is it only for civil servants?
It's for everybody that is contributing to the National Housing Fund.
Okay.
Yes. So the only thing we try to do in-house You know, because if you provide it for everybody, nobody is going to take the normal mortgage. Nobody will want to pay equity if I have an option to do rent to own. So because of that, we qualify the kind of houses that you can take under rent to own, and we try to profile your income. Okay. If you are some big man working in NNPC or CBN and you say you want to do rent to own, we will be very reluctant. But if you are a civil servant where we know you have lower income and you cannot afford the equity, then we'll give you the opportunity. So.
Okay, let's bring in Dr. Chime into this conversation now. We're rounding up in 1 minute. What improvements would you like to see in your collaboration with the Federal Mortgage Bank in 30 seconds?
Thank you so much. The improvement we need to do is to have that understanding across all the stakeholders of the need for all of us to chip in something to make for affordability for Nigerians to have the housing they need. We need the political will across all governing institutions, both at the federal government and at the subnationals. We need to have that political will to be able to tackle the challenges and the hindrances that we have in the ecosystem. My colleague have mentioned about recapitalization, mentioned about restructuring. There are a number of factors that contribute to affordability, not just within the ambit of the control of Federal Mortgage Bank. And that was what we lost since 2007 after the exit of Professor Akim Abugunche. But we are now re-engaging. And what we are asking everybody, including those who are asking for the houses, I've had instances where there was a housing estate at on the outskirts of Abuja.
Dr. Chime, we have to cut you. Let's just take 30 seconds for
Festus.
So sorry for that. Vice Adebayo, your
finally, I want to call on the government to intervene in the area of building materials.
Okay.
That is how we can solve the problem of affordability. Help the developers.
Help the developers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Finally, Andy, your closing remark.
I would call on state governments to support Mr. President's agenda by providing land and providing infrastructure so that they can reduce the cost of houses for the benefit of citizens of their states.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shehu Usman, OCD Managing Director, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
We hope to see you again.
Thank you very much.
All right. Also, we want to thank Barrister Festus Adebayo, Founder, Housing Development Advocacy Network. Thank you for your contribution. And also, Dr. Ugochukwu Chime, Housing Expert and Chairman, President, Land Reform Task Team, a member, Governing Council, Nigerian Employers Consultative Association. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
Well, that's our first topic for today. The second topic will kick off immediately after this break. Stay with us.